They send Isaac Okoro to the Chicago Bulls. They get Lonzo Ball back. They also got Sam Merrill to agree to a 4-year, $38 million contract extension. What does it all mean? Can we talk Nick into reality when it comes to a third stint of LeBron with the Cavaliers never, ever happening? All that and more with the outstanding Cavaliers beat writer for Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer, Chris Fedor, kind enough to take time out of his Sunday schedule to hop on with us. Chris, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. What's up?
Well, Cavs got a little busy yesterday. Not much going on. Sam Merrill's back, and Lonzo Ball is a Cav. I'm guessing he really likes the medical plan here?
We'll see. I mean, that's going to be one of the most important physicals, one of the most looked at physicals since Isaiah Thomas, maybe, in 2017 when the Cavs went through that whole thing with Isaiah during the Kyrie Irving trade. It'll be really, really interesting. Obviously, when you're talking about Lonzo, you can't ignore all of the health concerns that come with it. He missed 2 full seasons. He had a knee transplant, basically. So it'll be interesting to see what the medicals say about that. But he showed last year that he can still be something close to the player that he has been in the past.
The fact that they can get, they only have a 1-year commitment here with the option for the following season. How big of a piece was it? $1 million is $1 million. I don't think that really mattered all that much. But just the fact that they can get out from under the Okoro extension, how much of a driving factor was that in this deal, Chris?
Yeah, I think it was a big deal. I think when you look at Isaac and the role that he had for this team, it just didn't match his contract. At the time that they re-signed him, they were probably looking at him to be a little bit more of a piece of this championship quest. And then all of a sudden, DeAndre Hunter comes mid-season, and then Sam Merrill emerges, and then suddenly Isaac turns into a 16 to 18 minute a night player. You can't have guys like that on your roster that are making $11 million annually, especially when you feel like Isaac's the kind of guy. But 2 smart coaches in the NBA, J.B. Bickerstaff and Kenny Atkinson, both have a problem believing and trusting Isaac when you get to a playoff environment. Even with the Cavs dealing with injuries this past year, both against Miami and against Indiana, Isaac had a hard time getting in the rotation consistently when the playoffs rolled around because teams just ignore him when he's on the offensive end of the floor. They don't guard him. It congests the floor. It makes it difficult to play 4-on-5. And for all the things that he does on the defensive end of the floor with his screen navigation, his point of attack defense, maybe getting some defensive rebounds and pushing it out in transition, he's just an offensive liability when you get into a playoff environment. He's got more exploitable weaknesses within his offensive game than somebody like Lonzo Ball. So, yeah, when you're talking about the value matching the kind of player, it didn't align with Isaac. And the Cavs went into this offseason saying that, hey, we need to find a way, if we can, to move off of this money. And they found a player that they like in Lonzo. And I'll disagree with you a little bit. $1 million is $1 million, but everything with the Cavs at this point, given the financial situation that they're in, given the salary limitations that they have, everything is 6x. So we're talking about $6-7 million in savings. And that's a big deal for a team when you're talking about the luxury tax bill that they're going to have, and you're talking about how far above the second apron they are.
Talking to all things Cavs with Cleveland.com's Chris Fedor on the North Olmsted Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram hotline. Chris, a lot of people wondering about what the moves that the Cavs made yesterday, Lonzo Ball and Sam Merrill both, mean for the pending free agency of Ty Jerome. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've been getting the sense, and I wrote about this yesterday morning, and I talked about it on the Wine and Gold Talk podcast the other day as well. There had been a pessimistic tone coming from the organization about their chances of re-signing both Sam Merrill and Ty Jerome. You know, coming into free agency, I think the Cavs understood the reality of the situation that they were in. They were not going to be big spenders in free agency. The only thing that they can do outside the organization is sign guys to veteran minimum contracts. So they understood the reality. And coming into free agency, they said, okay, our priorities are our own guys, Sam Merrill, Ty Jerome. But again, there was a pessimistic tone coming from the organization about their chances of re-signing both. And I think they got a sense that the kind of contract that Ty Jerome is looking at from another team is either going to be too long of a deal or it's going to be a little bit out of their comfort zone in terms of what the overall cost is going to be. In the situation that they're in, they're deep into the luxury tax. They're above the second apron. Ty Jerome, if he's going to get a 12 to 14 million annual contract, and that's what I'm told he's looking at from some other teams out there, for the Cavs, that equates to about $80 to $85 million in a luxury tax bill. And I think it was always going to be hard for the Cavs to justify that kind of financial commitment to Ty Jerome. I think it was always going to be difficult for the Cavs front office to explain to Dan Gilbert why a 19-minute-a-night player, albeit very important to the Cavs' success during the regular season. He finished third in Sixth Man of the Year, but he played 19 minutes for the Cavs. And he's behind Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell on the point guard depth chart. If you want to play Donovan as the de facto backup point guard, you can certainly do that. So when you're talking about the role that Ty Jerome has for this organization and his importance in the hierarchy of this organization, justifying Dan Gilbert paying $80 million in a luxury tax for that guy, it was always going to be really, really difficult for the Cavs. They like him. They wanted to bring him back. I think there's a number that they would be comfortable with. I think there's how long the contract goes, whether it's 3 years, 2 years, something along those lines. I think there's that they would be comfortable with, but the totality of what his contract is probably going to be from another team is something where I think the Cavs were getting the sense that they'd probably be a little bit too uncomfortable. And look, there's another variable here for all the things that you can say about Ty and what he accomplished in the regular season, and Sam Merrill and what he accomplished in the regular season. And Sam Merrill wasn't third in Sixth Man of the Year voting. But when the Cavs got to the playoffs against Indiana, one guy got played out of the rotation. The other guy didn't. And I think that matters. When you're talking about the Cavs competing for a championship, they're looking primarily at who helps us the most when we get into the 16-game season. And I think the deficiencies that Ty showed, especially in that Indiana series, where Kenny felt like he had to bench him for the first half of Game 5, I think that stuck with the Cavs when it came to their big picture planning this offseason.
NBA free agency gets underway 6 p.m. tomorrow. So, Chris, just based on what you just laid out to us, I think it's suffice it to say that going to be a pretty quiet time for the Cavaliers.
Yeah, I think so, guys. Look, I think they're still shopping Dean Wade to see if there's interest there in what kind of player or what kind of package the Cavs could get back in return for Dean. But look, the reality is, given the financial situation that they're in, all they can sign are veteran minimum players. I think the other thing to consider when it comes to Ty versus Sam, and I don't want to pit it as one versus the other, but it was always going to be hard for them to re-sign both. I think the Cavs are more comfortable with the potential replacement options for Ty Jerome than they would have been if they let Sam Merrill walk and had to sign somebody with a veterans minimum that kind of way. Because if you look at the point guard market, and I'm not saying that all of these guys are going to be in the vet minimum range. Some of these guys might get paid a little bit more, but you just don't know how these things are going to play themselves out. You know, last year in free agency, Tyus Jones, who's a free agent again this offseason, thought he was going to get paid, and all of the money dried up and he had to settle for the vet minimum. But you're talking about Malcolm Brogdon, right? He can be helpful. You're talking about Spencer Dinwiddie. He can be helpful. You're talking about Tyus Jones, same thing. Trey Jones, same thing. And it's not a situation where the Cavs are saying, well, you know, whoever it is that we signed to potentially replace Ty is going to do all of the things for us at the same level that Ty did for us. But can they do enough of it where you can get by with them being on your roster? And I think they'd be okay if they got Dinwiddie on the veterans minimum. I think they'd be okay if they got Tyus Jones on the veterans minimum. Because like I said, the role that Ty had within this organization, where you already have two ball dominant players and Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, and now you added Lonzo Ball, and he can handle some secondary playmaking. He can be a shot creator for himself and for his teammates. I just think they feel like they have enough other options, both externally and internally, to potentially replace Ty in a way that they wouldn't have if Sam Merrill, both on this roster and outside the roster, if Sam would have walked. So I do think it's going to be quiet for the Cavs. I think they're going to look at the possibility of a 3-and-D wing on the veterans minimum. I think they're going to look at the possibility of a third big on the veterans minimum. And like I said, a third ball handler too on the veterans minimum, and which guy is out there that is willing to come here, accept that kind of role, and who's the most appealing option for them.
Chris Fedor, Cleveland.com, joining us on the North Olmsted Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram hotline, just in from Shem Sharania. No surprise here, but this is a cold bucket of water on my partner here, Chris, Nick Fedor. LeBron James has opted into that $52.6 million player option to stay with the Lakers. Will you please talk some sense into Nick that LeBron is not coming back for a farewell tour and a third stint with the Cavaliers? This is what I deal with, Chris, every Sunday. This is what I get every Sunday. The floor is yours, my friend.
I'm going to say that one of my most trusted mentors told me never say never in the NBA, so I won't go that far, but I would say it's highly, highly, highly unlikely, because the Cavs are one of the priciest teams in the NBA, and LeBron's not taking the veteran minimum to go anywhere. So you got to match. If you're going to trade for LeBron, now you got to match $50 million. Like, how are you going to do that? What are you going to do that's going to be appealing enough to do that? And he was never going to take something significantly less than what he's actually owed. LeBron has an ego. Of course he has an ego. And LeBron playing for less than his worth, what he values himself at, that was never going to happen. And the Cavs don't have the financial means to just bring LeBron James to the organization for nothing. Nick, where did that come from? Where did that idea come from? That LeBron was just going to come here for $3 million or something like that.
Chris, just the hopes and delusions that happen in my own head that there's no Halliburton, there's no Tatum. This would be a clear shot to win a championship on the 10-year anniversary of 2016, but it feels like it's done now.
LeBron is also very, very happy in Los Angeles for a variety of reasons, including some non-basketball reasons.
Oh, the weather's beautiful outside right now, though, Chris. This hurts me so much. Thanks so much for joining us, Chris.
You got it, guys. Anytime.
You're the best. Thanks so much. Chris Fedor, the outstanding Cavaliers beat writer from Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer.